Hi, I'm Mickey McNee, and welcome to my channel, Flipping Spain. Today, I'm going to be talking about why I chose to do real estate in Spain. First of all, when people are looking for a location to do real estate investing in, it usually is pretty straightforward. So it might be based on convenience. It's near where you live, or it's a city where you have family or friends that can help you out. Part of that also is familiarity. If you've grown up in a place or you've lived there for a number of years, you're very familiar with the market. You understand the different areas of town, you know kind of what the prices are doing, so it really helps you out. Affordability is another reason people choose a place. If you can't afford things in the town that you live in or in a place where you're familiar with, then you're just going to look for a place that has houses that meet your financial criteria, whether that's the purchase price or how much return on investment you're getting. And then there's also just opportunity. For example, the biker bar flip I did, which I'll talk about in another video, someone texted me and said, I have a house for sale for $6,000. And I just thought, well, I should buy it. But that didn't just come out of the blue. Like, I had gone to Indianapolis, I had met with people, I knew the guy that texted me the house, I knew the area. So it kind of was all the things combined. But those are the things that people usually look for. There's no wrong answer. It just depends on what your goals are. And so when I think about what my goals are, my number one goal is to own my home, the place that I live in, outright, and have it generate income. So that could mean it has a rental suite, or I run it as a business like a writer's retreat, or maybe there's some land and I lease it to a wind farm. And then if I can't have that, then the property needs to be affordable enough that I can own my home and buy a second property to then rent out and make money. Now, goals should be specific, and that one is sort of specific, but it doesn't have amounts attached to it. So I guess I should say I want to generate enough income to cover my living expenses, and then ideally put aside some money for savings or travel or emergencies. And that number will be dependent on the location, because it will just depend on what the cost of living is in that area, et cetera, et cetera. The point of that for me is that it frees up my time from having to work for money. So I could just say, okay, I own my home debt free and it makes me money, and that money pays for my food and my bills and maybe a little bit of fun. I could just stop there and I'd be okay. And that is, to me, that's just like takes so much stress out of my life. So that's the goal. But then it also frees up my time so that I can choose how to earn extra money. So I can get a part-time job that I enjoy, or I can start a business or do some real estate flips or things like that to earn more income to kind of build up my real estate portfolio from there. I do always say it's important to know your goals and your limitations. And for me, those limitations are that I won't own something that I wouldn't live in. No neighborhoods where I don't feel safe, no bad living conditions like mold or faulty wiring or anything like that in the house. I do have a limited budget, either what I can purchase in cash or how I can leverage it if I am someplace where I can get a mortgage and I want a mortgage, which I don't. I do prefer not to manage things long distance, and that has held me back in the past. So I'm saying now I'd prefer not to manage long distance, at least while I'm getting set up. So I do want to be able to invest in the place that I live in or quite near to it. And then I need to be able to legally live and work in that location. Now, that might seem like a no-brainer, but for me, I'm thinking internationally. I'm an American, and then I'm a New Zealand resident, so I can live and work in those two countries legally. But I want to live in Europe. So I had to find a place where I could legally live and work and then invest in real estate from there. And while we're making lists, my last limitation is that I would prefer not to share my space. So ultimately, I would prefer not to just be renting out rooms in the house that I live in. But that's a limitation I'm willing to compromise on in order to get started. And also, there's a big difference between being the landlord and renting out rooms than just living with roommates. So how did I get here? How did I figure out these are my criteria and Spain is the answer? It's really just been a journey in terms of when I left Denver, I sold my rentals. And maybe that was a super dumb decision, but A, it's too late now, and B, I don't know. I was really nervous about owning things while I was traveling, mostly because I didn't have a steady income, like I wasn't taking a remote job with me. So if anything went wrong, it might have been a challenge to cover my expenses, and I didn't want that stress. At the end of the day, now I'm starting over. Prices have gone up and up. Interest rates are up. My earning is way down, but my knowledge is the same. And my understanding about what I need to do to support myself long term is much, much clearer. I spent the last 4 years living in the UK, and I didn't commit to buying something there because buying was super competitive. I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to live there long term. I was on a student visa, and then I was on this worker visa. And as it turned out, I did not get a long term visa, so now I don't live there anymore. And I wasn't really clear on my goals either. So, to help with that, I went back to the US and I visited some places that either I had been researching or that I had visited before and considered as places to live/invest in, thinking, well, I could go to the US, build up a portfolio, and then that will support me to come back to Europe. But the places that I looked at that were affordable, I ran into issues like weather. A lot of them are cold, and that just brings a whole bunch of landlord issues that I didn't want to cope with, like broken heaters and frozen pipes. Crime. I decided that I didn't want to own properties when I was Googling, gun violence and the name of the neighborhood just to see if I was comfortable buying there. And then distance. My end goal was to live overseas. So I'm just the kind of person who doesn't want to spend years doing A in order to get to B. I'd rather just go do B and figure it out. So, funnily enough, right now I'm living in New Zealand, and that's because I'm a resident here and I can work here. And I hadn't been here in a long time, and I really like it here. So I thought, well, I'll just go down and see what it feels like. But run into the same issues as I do in most places in the States, which is that prices are really high. It would be a struggle to buy one property, even if I was able to get something where I could rent out rooms. My ability to get into a second place would be so slow. The growth would be so slow, and that's just not good at my age. And returns are really thin. And at the end of the day, because I'm thinking internationally, the New Zealand dollar is not the currency you want to be earning in if you want to support yourself living or traveling in most other places in the world. That might not be relevant to you at all, but maybe you're also someone who's thinking long term about retiring overseas. You do have to think about the strength of the income that you're earning. I realized that I do still want to live in Europe, and I've looked at all sorts of options, but I don't have a remote job and I don't have a legit retirement income. So that takes away a lot of the visas you can apply for. And then I found out about this language assistant program, which I will talk about in another video, which will allow me to live in Spain and get paid for part-time work. And I'm going to need a place to live anyway. So my plan is to do the program, buy an apartment, and rent out rooms to other people in the program. And then I'll get to know the area, I'll get to understand the market, and then I can go from there. When I look at Spain, the pros, or what goals of mine it supports, there's a lot. It's affordable. Sure, there are places where you can spend a lot of money on property, but most cities and most regions have properties that are pretty darn affordable. I can legally live in Europe, which those two things combined allows me to own my own home that generates some income and live in a place that I'm happy living. And on a personal note, I already speak some Spanish and I would really love to become fluent, so I'll be submersing myself. So that'll just be a bonus. There are some cons, of course, there always are. Language is one of them. I am not fluent, and that's going to make it difficult for me to navigate the legalities and to hire workers or things like that. But I'm working on it. And I'll actually link one of my favorite Spanish channels, Spanish After Hours. That girl is awesome. I'll be new to the area, so I'll have limited contacts or resources. But that's something that I'm working on in advance, and I'll talk about that in my networking video. And that has allowed me to sort of start researching things like the new tax laws and landlord laws that I'm going to have to navigate, which is a whole nother video. And those things, are reflected in changing laws on rental rates and tourist licenses and a lot of the chatter is people saying, oh, it's not worth it because you can't Airbnb everything for $1 million a month. But I'm actually in favor of affordable housing. So I'm willing to work within those limitations. And I feel like people like me who just want to support themselves and maybe help some other people have good living conditions at an affordable rate, we should be fine. So, all things considered, I'm excited, especially as I sit here on a cold, rainy New Zealand winter day, dreaming of my little hacienda in Spain. So, I'm going to give it a go and we'll have some fun figuring it out together. Thanks for joining me. See you in the next video.